Welcome back, everyone. The first ever 3D CAD Teen Tournament has been a roller coaster of emotions full of amazing talent and nail-biting competition. Huge thanks to everyone who's been cheering on the competitors so far. We're moving on to the semifinals this week, and the matchups couldn't be more exciting. Smiley will face off against La La Lambs in a classic battle of wits and clicks, while W is set to battle Mr. Fancy Pants in what promises to be some of the most captivating matches yet. This all goes down Friday, January 24th at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Too Tall Toby's channel, and trust me, you do not want to miss this. There's no other CAD contest like this going on, so why wouldn't you tune in? With more epic challenges, intense competition, and prizes from 3D Connection, it's the ultimate CAD showdown. Mark your calendars and spread the word and get ready for the action. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, and we'll see you live this Friday. Links to the live stream will be in the description below, and thanks again to our very generous sponsors for making this tournament possible. Welcome back to Shifting to Solids. Today we're going to be talking about the rib feature in Onshape. So like always, let's get started with a sketch. We'll start on our top plane, Shift and S to start a sketch, letter N to normalize that view, and P to hide those planes. We've talked about N for normalize a lot in every video I've done on Onshape so far. And today it's going to kind of make sense on why we do that. But like I said, for starters, we're going to need to draw some geometry. So some easy ways we can do this. We're going to start on my tab. I have an inside rib tab and an outside rib part studio. So we'll start inside and we'll explain how these work. But either way, we need to draw some geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a center point rectangle off my origin point. Make it 10 by 10. And let's move this out of the way. We'll do another center point rectangle. Remember, shortcut key is R for that. I'm going to click my origin. And for this one, to do the simple math for you, we want a 1-inch offset on each side, but all I need to do is take one off of each. So it's going to be an 8 by 8. Okay. After that, we're going to go ahead and press Shift and E to bring up that extrude command. It is smart and it thinks it wants me to do just this rib, but here essentially this outside ring, but I want the whole thing. So I'm going to make sure I select that inside. And this is where things might get a little tricky. I actually want this to go down below my surface. If I turn those planes back on, and you'll see my front plane is the top. The way it had it originally, it was going to be the bottom of my shape. This lets it to where we can reuse the sketch a little easier. I'm going to flip it to where my sketch is now on the top. And 1 inch is fine. Again, this is a practice, so we're not using this to actually give us like a specific part. It doesn't need to be under certain specs, but we just want to be able to be on the same page. So we'll click OK for 1 inch. Now we'll shut those planes back off by pressing the letter P. Come over here, turn my sketch back on. My eye is closed. Open my eye back up. And now we're going to extrude again, but this time we're going to pick just that outside frame. So you'll see I have a shell here, and we can make that like 5 inches. So it'll be a total of a 6-inch box with a bottom with a 1-inch floor. You'll see if I shut my sketch off, you'll see it's one solid piece. I know there's some of you guys in the comments that are like, well, we could have done a shell command. You're absolutely right. We could have done that. But this is one way I wanted to show you. I know some of you guys are jumping in and trying to figure out how these things work, and you're looking for all the different ways to go about doing it. So sketch, extrude up 1 inch down, and then extrude up another 5 inches for a total of 6 inches. So now what we're going to do, we're going to draw one more sketch, but we're going to start it on this sketch plane on the top of that face that we just made. Okay. So you'll see it says face of extrude 2 right here. And you'll see if you follow along with this little rectangle here, it is in line with that top face. So now if we end to normalize, what I want to do is I want to break this box up into 4 quadrants. So easiest way to do that, grab a line. There's one from midpoint to midpoint, and from here, midpoint to midpoint. I could have gone from diagonal to diagonal. Doesn't really matter. Just you need to have a line or set of lines drawn like so. After that, we're going to click OK. And you'll see it'll go to like a gray color, showing that we're no longer in that sketch. Now this is where the rib tool lives. So if you follow me up top, last week we talked about draft. Rib lives right next to it. We'll get a little more into the shell command next week. That's kind of why I didn't want to hit on it. But if you're following along with all the videos, they kind of build. So for rib, it creates ribs from the sketch curves on selected parts, specify thickness, and indicate whether to extend normal or parallel to the sketch plane. So we'll go ahead and click that. Come over here, and it's telling me sketch profile, part, thickness, parallel, draft. We have all these options. First thing we got to do is click our sketch profile, and so that's our lines. So if we come over to our drawing, I will click one line and two lines. So I'm going to go both of those. Now I come back and it's asking me for the part. So I'm going to just click my part here, and you'll see it turns red, and it doesn't like that. One reason it doesn't like that is because it's trying to make a rib, and essentially it's making a 3D part that's going to be 0.1 inch across or thick, parallel to the sketch plane. Well, if I turn my plane back on, parallel to the sketch plane is like this. Anything horizontal is going to be parallel with my sketch plane. Okay. If I switch this to normal to sketch plane, remember, what is the normal? Let me do this real quick. The normal button, if I press N for normal and I normalize my view, it's going to bring me to the top, and it's going to show me that face from that normal view, right? So if I do that same thing and I say normal to sketch plane, you'll see now it's going to normalize that view, and it's going to bring those things down. So it's important that you understand what that means, normal versus parallel. Remember, our sketch plane was on the top here. And then now if I go to my thickness, I can click on that, type in whatever measurement. But remember, if you have your scroll wheel over it, you can also use that to check some thicknesses. So it was set at 0.1. It'll go up by 0.1 each wheel click. So there's 0.2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll go all the way up to, we'll make it 1 inch. And we'll say okay. Some things you want to notice, there's the draft, and last week we talked about draft. So if I click that real quick, you'll see it starts to add. We'll go a little bit bigger. You can draft down and give it an angle. If I swap that angle the opposite direction, you'll see it'll cut down the other way. For what we're doing today, draft isn't really necessary, and just showing that, that's kind of there. Extend profiles to part. So maybe this line didn't draw all the way end to end. You can have it go end to end, and that'll do it like so. And then merge ribs. If I unclick that, you'll see I now end up with 3 parts over here in my part viewer, and I get some collision and things start to unravel here. So it is a good idea to keep that merge ribs box together, especially if you're going to be 3D printing this, or maybe you're milling this out. If you're using this as a like maybe a way to put shelves in on some cabinets or something, I wouldn't recommend using it all together as one. I would draw a line and then make one rib. It would take some steps. That way you can manipulate each one accordingly. But after you've got everything you want selected, go ahead and click that green check mark. And now you'll see I have it broken up into equal parts. One thing to note, the reason we had to do this first extrude, if I delete that, you'll see, oh, too far. Let's, take this out of there, delete that, extrude to, see, it already breaks everything up. Basically what I was going to show you is, we'll just roll back. We'll go back to here and we'll do that all again. But a thing to note when you're doing that is if you don't have a bottom. So if we did, let's go back to this first. We'll go here. We'll make that our total 6. And if I don't have a bottom of my shape, when I go to do a rib, we'll do it on the top again. Normal. I'll show you this with that merge to the end. So these lines obviously don't touch my part all the way, but if I go to my rib now, my rib tool, same idea, sketch profile. I'm going to click here and here, and then I click the part, normal to sketch plane. You'll see it's trying to do it, and I can say extend profiles to part. It'll do that. However, it doesn't know where to end at the bottom. There's no bottom anymore. So it doesn't know where to stop. It's just going to keep going forever and ever and ever. So I know you're thinking it might be because of the extending profiles, but I'll go back here and show you how to fix this. So I'll slide my rollback bar to before I did my sketch, and we will do another extrude. And basically I just want all of sketch 1 all of sketch 1 to be, let's make another sketch because it's going to be giving me a problem here. We'll do a sketch on the bottom. We'll do a rectangle off that center point, there to there. Okay, extrude. Give it the bottom. Call it a day. There we go. Okay, now if I go back to my rib, and you'll see, I'll start that feature over. I'll do rib, click my lines, sketch profile. This is the part that I want. You'll see it's not doing anything because of parallel to sketch plane, but if I switch it to normal, it works totally fine. Now what's cool is you don't have to extend it completely to the wall, and so that's something I wanted to show you. If I only wanted this to go so far, I could. I can also turn up my thickness. Maybe this time I only wanted a 1/2 inch. But if I did want it to extend, I could click that box, and you'll see that my line actually only goes from here to here, but my whole 3D part now will go complete end to end. It'll extend itself until it hits that part in some way, shape, or form. So pretty cool things you can do. Maybe if you're making some parts for like casting or whatever, and they need to meet each other up, you can do that. And again, that draft angle's there as well. So for this one, we'll just say okay, extend, and you'll see we end up with pretty much the same geometry. I know I added 1 inch because of that floor. I did it different than I did the other way. And next week you guys will learn about shell. But essentially, this is where the rib tool works. Now, something I want to show you for parallel will be on our outside rib. So we're going to jump into another part studio. All right, and after you're in that new part studio, go ahead and create a new sketch. We'll click that top plane, N to normalize, P to hide those planes. We'll start a rectangle at the center point, so a center point rectangle. Shortcut key R. Click the origin, and we'll go out 10 inches by 10 inches, and just to stay pretty simple. But from here, what we're going to do now, we'll move these dimensions out of your way. We'll go to a corner rectangle. We'll just go from here down to the bottom, and we'll make that a 1 inch rectangle. I'm going to select both pieces and press Shift E to extrude. However, I don't want to go up. I want to go down 1 inch. And we'll turn my sketch back on. And now I'm going to pick here. And so since we already have 1 inch here to make it even, I'm going to take this piece. We will extrude for a total of, to make 10, we're going to add 9. So from the bottom here to the top of this face, that'll be 10. So we'll say okay. And you'll see that we have a nice L-shaped bracket. A piece of angle iron or something, whatever you're thinking. I mean, 10 inches is a pretty big piece of angle, but you get the idea. So now what we're going to do, we're going to draw that rib like we normally would. Now, I know some of you guys are thinking, okay, well, this is how I would do it. I would draw a sketch on this front plane of my, not the front plane, but the front of my drawing. And I'm going to draw from this corner down to here, right? Well, one thing I want you to notice and pay attention to how we did this. I didn't really give it a measurement. I just drew a line. If I go and click line and then click rib, it doesn't matter if I go parallel, normal to, well, that's normal to, and normal to, you'll see will not do what we need to. I can click this. I can mess with all these settings and it's not going to work. And when I first started using the rib tool, this is what I was trying to do. And I'm like, I know it should work. Why is it not working? I don't know why, but it has to be centralized. And maybe it's just the nature of the beast, or somebody who knows way more than I do could probably tell you why. But essentially, this is what I figured out. So if you want a rib on the outside, like we just did, don't do a rib. Just do a simple extrusion. So you'll take that face, extrude. If I need that to go over a 1/4 inch, that's all you got to do. And you'll see now I get a kind of gusset piece like so, right? And if you're like, oh, I don't want it to attach, I want it to be its own piece, make sure you click new. Well, there you go. It's the same idea. However, this isn't the extrusion video. This is the rib video. So how do I get that same thing to happen, but in the center? It's all about where you place your sketch. So if I go back to my first sketch, I'm going to turn my planes on so we can kind of see what's going on here. You'll see I drew on this face, and you'll see, if you follow me up to the top, the sketch plane is face of extrude 1. And if you hover over that, you'll see that it highlights that face, right? Well, if I click delete face of extrude 1 as my selection for my sketch plane, my sketch disappears, but it's kind of floating up in space because it's asking me to select a new sketch plane. So if I zoom in and I click my front plane, it'll reapply that in the same manner that I had it drawn originally, but now it exists on that front plane. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before for that rib, but instead of my sketch existing on the outside, it exists in the middle. Now watch, it's crazy. Sketch profile, line. I didn't even have to pick the part. It automatically knew I need this to be 0.25. It already has parallel to sketch plane. If I went normal, that's when it doesn't work because of the nature of how I drew that. So we'll have to keep that as parallel. Extend profiles to part. It already did that because of the way I drew that line. But if I were to draw that shorter, that's how that would work. And merge the ribs. So if you want 2 separate pieces, maybe this is a weld up, like a weldment, some sort of fit up gusset. Uncheck merge if you want 2 pieces. If you want it to be one solid piece, maybe this is being cast or whatever, you can do that like so. You can draft, add that draft angle. Maybe it's going to be a wedge, give it quite a bit of a angle. Whatever it is you need to do. You can also flip that draft. I think I showed you guys that on that other one. Let's go not so big. And you can kind of see that it's cutting in the opposite way. So whatever you need to do for that, but remember, it has to be in between something, in the middle of some sort of geometry that already exists. So let's shut that draft off. Say, okay. Well, what if I wanted 2 of them and I wanted to merge like so? Well, when you first set up that plane, I would set up like an offset plane and kind of offset it from one side and then do it. Then you can mirror it over, whatever. Like I said, there's a million ways to go about doing it, but merge, or that rib being inside of this versus on the outside, is how you would do it. If it's on the outside, just extrude it. If you guys are in contests and you're in the competition, rib looks like it's going to be the way to make things happen. Honestly, more often than not, extrusion is probably going to be how you'll get that piece. And you can go from there. So that's going to do it for us today on these features on the rib tool. Again, that inside rib. Play around with it. See what happens if you change your sketch to a different plane. And if you go normal versus parallel, you can go draft, edit all that stuff and see what you can come up with. So thanks again for tuning in. jump onto the live stream this Friday, the 24th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. It'll be 1 p.m. Eastern on Too Tall Toby's channel. Go and check it out. We're having a blast, and these kids are doing really good. So give them the recognition they deserve and cheer them on for the semis. See you guys later.